Hello, and welcome to the first iteration of the podcast that I've got from my blog going, the first iteration of the Lenguas Dos Almas podcast. Our guest this afternoon for the first episode is Matthew Bond. Matt, you're the director of 650 Lacrosse, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. And Matt, you've been coming to Samara for how long now? This is
our eighth trip.
Your eighth trip down to Playa Samara, Costa Rica. Okay. And before we get into the details of the trip, can you just tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure.
Who you are? Give me your story.
Yeah, okay. I am the founder, owner, director, CFO, CMO, one-man show of 650 Lacrosse, which is a San Francisco Bay Area-based lacrosse company. And we do youth lacrosse, high school lacrosse, travel teams, tournaments. I coach at Menlo Atherton High School. I also run the Menlo Park local youth program called the Menlo Atherton Grizzlies. My wife's name is Katie. My 10-year-old son's name is Grayson. And prior to launching 650, I was a youth pastor for 18 years, first in Connecticut, and then in Newport Beach, Southern California, and then up in the Bay Area in Menlo Park. And I played lacrosse all growing up, all through high school and in college and after college. And so part of my role as a youth pastor is I had always been involved in the local high schools where we were doing ministry and working as a coach, lacrosse coach. And so around about 2012, decided to take the leap and get into coaching full time, started a small business. Wasn't sure if it was going to last 6 months. And here we are, 9 years later.
All right, that's very cool. And so it seems like, after hearing that quick description, lacrosse is your life. Lacrosse is what you do. And I'm curious as to how you ended up here in Playa Samara through through this lacrosse lifestyle, lacrosse path that you've taken. How'd you end up down here in Costa Rica?
There are many angles. Okay, I'll take it sort of one angle at a time. When I started 650, no, I'll go back before then. We started doing missions trips when I was a youth pastor, when we were in Newport Beach. Our home church from Connecticut did a missions trip to Nosara, which is just about 20 miles up the road here. And that was 2003. And so we spent 10 days down here on a missions trip. And then for the next 6 years, we kept coming back. So my job changed. We moved from Newport Beach to Menlo Park. And I just brought the trip with me. So we took groups of high school students on missions trips, serving in the local community, serving in the local churches in Nosara. And then round about the time I started 650, I discovered somewhere online, Facebook, somewhere, that there's lacrosse in Costa Rica. And there were two brothers, Walter and Aldo Rojas, who saw a lacrosse game on YouTube in 2005, and they just thought, wow, that's the coolest game we've ever seen. We want to play that. Meanwhile, no one in Costa Rica had ever picked up a lacrosse stick before. So these two enterprising brothers decided to start a program, got their hands on some equipment, and invited their friends to play. And 5 or 6 years went by, and partnering with Jesse Friedman at Student Cultural Exchange and a few other folks, we took our first lacrosse trip down here in 2012. The connection between the service projects and lacrosse is it's not much of a leap for me, like just in my kind of philosophy of coaching. My background in youth ministry and mission trips, we're always trying to find creative ways to get kids out of their element, out of their everyday context, to help them see the world, help them experience other cultures, help them experience or meet people from different places. And so that's basically what we try to do with lacrosse. Now, these lacrosse trips aren't associated with any church. They're not religious in kind of any way, but the same values apply of service, of stepping out of our comfort zones, dealing with adversity, the adventure of travel, the adventure of meeting people from different backgrounds that we might not otherwise meet. And so essentially what we do with lacrosse is that we use this sport, it could be any sport, we happen to use lacrosse as a vehicle for introducing kids to the experience of travel, the the blessing of serving other people, of stepping outside themselves. And I think at the end of the day, what we hope our students and our athletes walk away from is the idea that you can use your passion as a young person, regardless of that passion, whether it's in business or music or the arts or athletics. You can find a way, if you're creative, to harness that passion to help make a difference in the world. And sometimes that's kind of a novel idea in athletics, because we're so focused in athletics. I know as a young athlete, you're so focused on improving or getting to the next level, finding that next step. In some ways, it's a very selfish pursuit, because you're thinking about, how can I grow, how can I get better, how can I get to the next step. So it's kind of a novel idea when you introduce a young athlete to the concept that you can use whatever it is that you love already, harness the energy of that, and use that as a vehicle for making some kind of difference in the world. Now, are 1 or 2 or 12 or 20 people going to change the entire planet? No. But the idea that you're just one person, but that you can do something, is an idea that I hope sticks with the students that we bring here.
It certainly has, and I can tell you, as someone who was on one of these trips at one point, it was about 5 years ago now, I think, if we thought back to that point, that has definitely, my first initial trip to Costa Rica, although it wasn't with a 650 trip, your group was there with us, and certainly was my first introduction to international travel and my introduction to kind of the crossroads where service and lacrosse can meet, and just opened my eyes to the different places where lacrosse and travel can take you, and it's been a very exciting journey ever since then. So I think what you're doing does have a pretty big impact and can really do a lot for these kids. Going forward now, just really quickly, can you break down for us what you've done on this trip? You guys got here, 10 days ago now? Really quickly, just quick overview, what have you guys been doing since you landed in Costa Rica?
So we arrived last Friday in San Jose, and we spent Saturday, Sunday, Monday in the capital city of San Jose. And we don't always spend time in San Jose, but every 3 or 4 years, we try to spend some time there, because that's where 99% of their lacrosse is going on. And when we come straight to Playa Samra, the Costa Rica lacrosse players have to travel to us, and it's quite a big expense for them, and we give them time to plan and prepare to come and visit us. So we just like to return the favor every few years and spend some time in San Jose. So we spent 2 days doing a training camp with the Costa Rican national team, who are preparing for the box lacrosse world championships in Vancouver next month. And so we did a coaching clinic, we did a players clinic, and we competed. We played games. They were very interested in seeing where their level was compared to some American players. Now, we're bringing a mix of athletes on our trips. We bring 9th graders through 12th graders, occasionally some college players, so the skill level is really mixed, but it doesn't really matter. Most of the players we bring down have had a stick in their hands for a number of years, and so for the Costa Rican players to see different levels of talent, and frankly some players that are really good that are going to be playing in college, it's challenging for them, but it's also very inspirational, and there's a great brotherhood among the players. They share ideas on the field. They share knowledge. So it's just a really fruitful interaction and a really fruitful relationship. So we did that for 2 days, and then on Monday in San Jose, we went and visited a children's center that is run by the Roble Alto Children's Orphanage, which is the largest orphanage in Central America. In all their programs, there are over 600 full-time students involved, and we went to one of their satellite centers near downtown San Jose. And these children come from situations of extreme poverty. Many of their parents are incarcerated. Many of the children have been rescued off the streets, put into government programs, and then placed at this children's center. So it's really a huge gift for them to welcome us, our group, into their center. And so we did arts and crafts with the children. We worked with them in the classrooms. And probably the coolest thing is we were able to plant a garden. That was one of the big needs that they expressed. They really wanted to be able to grow a garden in one corner of the center where the children could incorporate the gardening practices into their curriculum. The children would have a chore, but they would also get to kind of nurture and watch something grow, which the director explained to us that she uses as a metaphor in their curriculum for, when they come into the center, they have the opportunity to grow, they have the opportunity to be nurtured, to be flourished, and so they're going to be taking care of the plants and the flowers and the trees and everything that we put in ongoing, which was really, it's just difficult to put into words, but it was a pretty powerful experience. And then the past 4 days, we've been in Playa Samra. So we've done a mix of work and service projects, including painting, and we've done some lacrosse clinics, and we've played lacrosse. There are a few other groups here with us. Student Cultural Exchange always brings down multiple groups from the States, and so we were able to suit up and get out there on the field and play a boys game and then play a girls game. There are boys teams and girls teams down here with us at the same time from all over the States, and so for our students to be able to meet other athletes from different parts of the country was just really great to be able to share the entire experience. And then, of course, we got to do a zipline canopy tour, which is always a highlight, and surf lessons, and the surf was actually pretty good yesterday.
Yeah, they had good waves out there.
Samra doesn't have, it's kind of protected in a bay, so it doesn't have the best surf in Costa Rica. There are more consistent spots, but when it works here, it works really well. And so yesterday was definitely a highlight for the kids to get out in the water and catch a couple waves.
Very cool. And like we mentioned earlier, you've been doing this. This is your 8th lacrosse-specific trip down here to Costa Rica, to San Jose and Playa Samara. So what are some of those yearly challenges in and out? Like every year we run into this problem, and what do you do as the director and as the kind of the jefe, the boss man of this trip to ease that challenge or alleviate that challenge? And if that does come up, something that you do to solve it or alleviate that, fix that?
I think our biggest challenge is getting the word out,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, because there's no shortage of need. There's a lot of good that needs to be done down here. And I think going home, the biggest challenges are when we're home, getting the word out. I guess you could call it marketing. We call it telling stories about the children down here that we meet and the needs that they have. And I think it's really important just to say, too, kind of as an aside, it's really important that we not have this sense of being some kind of like American saviors coming down. I think that's really arrogant. I think there are a lot of groups that maybe without even trying to have that sort of perspective, we come down here with the idea that we're probably going to get more out of it than the children we're serving, just in terms of the experience. And we walk into it saying, how can we help? Whatever you need, we just want to be of service, and we just want to help out. And that's a big reason why we come to the same place year in and year out. I think in my experience, being a youth pastor over a number of years and now running this lacrosse trip for a number of years, I come into contact with a lot of companies in the service travel industry and even in the sports travel industry. And everyone seems to have kind of a different philosophy. And for better or worse, we've sort of landed on this idea that there are lots of places we could go, and there are lots of needs all over the world. And there might be, let's say, cooler places that we could go. I mean, it would be great to go, I don't know, to Spain or to the South Pacific, or, there are a lot of places we could go. we've landed here and we are just committed to this one place. And so with that comes a lot of community, and the folks here that welcome us year in and year out know us and expect us, and I think there's a level of trust and relationship, even with the cultural differences. There aren't, once we're down here, there are the small challenges, of getting here and there, and the language barrier sometimes, and it can be hot some days, and there are obviously the typical challenges of traveling, but I would say, our biggest challenges when we go home is sharing the story of how special Costa Rica is in particular, but also Playa Samra specifically. I mean, there's no place like it on earth. I mean, we've done trips, not lacrosse trips, but in my lifetime, I've been lucky enough to do trips to Europe and South Africa, Australia, Hawaii, Fiji, the Dominican Republic, different places. And there's just something really special and unique about the Costa Rican culture and the people, but also Playa Samra. It's this fascinating mix of Tico customs and culture and language, but also it's very international. People that grow up in the local community have been out and seen the world, and have seen the world and said, you know what, Playa Samra is home, and they come back and they make their homes here. So just getting the stories out, telling the stories, getting the word out would probably be our biggest challenge.
Okay. And then, so those are a little bit of the challenges, a little bit of the walls that we might hit here, but what are some of the highlights or special moments that you guys experience or have experienced either on this trip or in trips in the past? What are some of the highlights?
I could tell 1,000 stories. I think generally speaking, everyone comes back with a new outlook on life, and they come back changed. And I think that transformation, that change, is what motivates me to do this year in and year out. And it's hard. I mean, this is a hard trip. You face adversity. It's not easy at home planning. It's a long process. We start planning pretty much when we get home, for the following year. We'll get home, rest up, and beginning of September, we'll pick dates and start planning and look at flights and figure out hotels and start to get the word out and get our applications updated and update the website and get things going in September for, next year, 2020. The highlights have to be, in addition to lacrosse. I mean, I know we use lacrosse as a vehicle for being down here. Obviously, there are incredible highlights playing lacrosse with and against the Costa Rican national team and some of their club teams. It's always a highlight. That sport, music, and the arts really are a universal language, and you don't need a translator if you don't speak the language. If music, arts, and sport, maybe there's some others, but those are the big ones. And so that's always a highlight. For my money, the highlights have to be working with the children. We bring down a lot of big, tough American athletes, and we do team meetings before we leave. We prep them, but until you see it, you really don't know what it's like. And to see these guys step out of their comfort zones and to get down on the floor and to play with the children that we serve and to make friendship bracelets and to do coloring books and to do all different kinds of arts and crafts, it makes these kids, the kids that we serve, it makes their day, and they light up. And we come down with extra bags of school supplies, and whatever we don't use, we leave. And often it's months and months of school supplies. And so to see the teachers react when we hand them, a bag of school supplies and arts supplies is just kind of priceless. You can't, I don't know. You can't put a price tag on that kind of fulfillment, that kind of reward. We do all the adventurous stuff, the zip line tours and the beach hikes and the surfing are all great. And those are lifelong memories. But really, it's the interactions with the people that we serve that's what you take with you. I mean, those are the memories that you take home and impact the way that you live at home. And I think at the end of the day, what we say to our students that we bring down is that we hope in some way that you would go home somehow changed. Maybe in a small way, maybe in a big way, but that you would go home different than when you came down. And so I think if that happens, then mission accomplished.
Okay, so you're looking to, that kind of feeds into my second question, my next question here. You talk about service to the community and how you're providing a service for the local Costa Rican community here. But then on the flip side, earlier you mentioned that your players, your athletes are going to take away more than maybe we could bring to the community here. What service does this trip, or what service are you providing to the players, and what does this trip do for them specifically?
A lot. I'm going to try to boil it down.
Okay.
A lot of our students travel. A lot of our students have been all over the world. Relatively speaking, compared to the rest of the planet, we are very blessed. When we begin telling stories at home and trying to get students to commit to coming on this trip, a lot of them already have many stamps in their passports. My experience, generally, is that when many Americans travel, they wind up recreating their American experience wherever they happen to be on the planet. Whether that's the kinds of hotels they choose to stay in, the kinds of foods they eat, or the people they interact with. And it's not a judgment on that kind of travel, but I know that the majority of people in my area anyway that travel that way. They will find a Four Seasons. They will find air conditioning. They will find a hamburger. And not very many people choose what I think is the more authentic route of interacting with local people on their terms, on the local person's terms, here on Tico terms. We come down with the idea that we will be building relationships with our Costa Rican friends on their turf, on their terms, and not trying to recreate our American experience just, overseas. So, and that will broaden your horizons more than anything. And I need to remind myself, I've been doing this for a long time, and so I need to remind myself, for many of the athletes that we bring here, this might be their first time experiencing travel in that way. Some of them need to ease into it. Some of them dive right in. People have different comfort zones. But when you're in high school, it's a cliche, kind of because it's true, to be honest. It's a very formative time of life. It was for me. And so I remember the travel experiences that I had when I was in high school, and I feel like they really shaped the adult that I've become and the husband and the father that I've become. And so those memories have stuck with me and have formed my outlook and philosophy on life. And they were really critical. And I think from a really big picture, from like 50,000 feet, I think what we're talking about ultimately is empathy. And when you travel and interact with people on their terms, not on your terms, you're provided an opportunity to build empathy and to see the world from someone else's point of view. And to me, that's the key to relationships. That's the key to being a great teammate. That is the key to being successful in whatever endeavor you choose, whether it's business or the arts or athletics. If you can somehow build a healthy sense or dose of empathy, then you're set up for a lot of things that you're going to face in life. And so the opportunity to provide the opportunity for students to build their own sense of empathy and the opportunity to see the world from someone else's point of view is really, really significant. And I don't think it's something we go looking for. I think it's something that almost has to be provided for us. I know it was for me. I wasn't thinking, when I was in high school, I wasn't thinking I need an opportunity to build some empathy. But through, my coaches and other adults in my life that I looked up to provided those opportunities for me. And I don't always get it right. And a lot of times I get it wrong. But I think this trip from kind of a big picture point of view is able to do that.
It's fantastic. And I think, like I said, I had a very similar experience. I had the same experience, I guess, 5 years ago now, and it certainly has shifted and molded the person that I've come to be and the person that I will continue to grow into. So I think you guys are doing a great job down here, Matt. I want to say thank you for sitting down with me and having this quick chat, just a quick little 30-minute chat. Anything else that you want to say to my 5 listeners, my grandfather and my aunts right now listening on this podcast?
Keep going, man. Keep doing what you're doing. Everyone has to start somewhere.
Very good. All right. Thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate you being here with me today.
You're welcome. Pura vida.